Good day, everyone. Today, we're going to be busting some myths with MythBusters CX Cloud Migration Edition. My name's Owen Robinson. I've got over 20 years in this space, helping customers build the customer experiences and the employee experiences that each of those deserve. I'm currently the Vice President of CX Strategy here at Waterfield Tech. From comprehensive AI solutions to CX strategy to contact center operations, technology, and analytics. No hassles, no headaches, just meaningful, measurable results. That's what we do. So today, we're going to drop into our CX cloud adoption and some of the myths that have both developed over time as well as persevered. But before we get into that, let's back up just a step and talk about where we are with CX cloud migrations. And the truth is, we have entered the mainstream. As Max Ball from Forrester here says, we've reached this inflection point where we can actually do more with cloud systems than we could ever do with premise systems. And that toggle, probably a couple of years ago is when it happened, has really moved CX cloud adoption into the mainstream. It's no longer something we're doing just for fun or to do tactical things. Roughly, according to how you measure it or which analyst you speak to, roughly 20% of CX cloud or CX agents have moved to the cloud to date globally, with estimates that we'll get to 80+% saturation within the next 5 years, again, depending on which analyst you speak to. But we're past the early adopters, we're past the people experimenting it, we're into the true mainstream of organizations of all size taking advantage of what cloud customer experience technologies can offer. And just to remind, there's a lot of things driving this, and it's not just the only pay for what you use cloud consumption model that I'm just paying for. I can pay by the drink, a couple $100 an agent per month and get everything I need. It's not just that anymore. Again, as Mr. Ball says, we've reached that change point where we can do more. So the unbelievable computing power we have in cloud technologies drives all of the analytics and AI innovation and natural language and things that we could never do before, and things that we could do before, but were just prohibitively expensive to do. Further than that, the cloud environments are really resilient. So whichever one you're talking about, they're built into these highly integrated cloud fabrics that are geographically dispersed, and things that we can do to make them much more resilient and secure than we ever could a premise system, except at the very high end of the market. And what this really does for us is it means that we have access to this incredibly feature-rich, powerful, resilient, redundant, secure technology, even at the scale of just a few people for a few $100 a month. That's been the game changer, and that now you have organizations that are maybe only 50 agents, 100 agents, maybe they're just doing some chat or whatever, that they're able to access this technology at a price point that they can consume it at their scale, which has really sped the adoption of cloud through the market. So that's where we are with cloud, but as I said, we're past the early adopters. We've learned a lot of things along the way, which allows us to go back and pop some of these myth bubbles that have developed over the time. So myth number one, going to cloud is easy. You've heard this from the cloud vendors, haven't you? They come out and say, you just have to activate it. We'll have you live by Friday and you'll be up and all these features are available and you can get off to the races. It's a myth. Contact centers are inherently sophisticated. They are complex engines that do a lot because you are doing a lot. Customers are complex. You're talking to them across multiple channels. You're managing your employees. You're doing training. You're doing quality assurance. You're doing scheduling. You're doing self-service. You're doing all the things that you do in your contact center environment. That complexity and that sophistication doesn't go away just because you're moving from prem to cloud. All of that is still there. So we're sold a bill of goods sometimes that it's easy when it's not. And that sets up a really poor expectation up front that you think you're getting to something easy and you're really not, because it doesn't get any simpler because you go to the cloud. And then often you find that when customers do get to the cloud, so when they're going through this migration of they were a basic contact center, we did some omni-channel a few years ago, we added some outbound, we did some self-service, whatever the technologies we added, and then we go to cloud. And we see a lot of customers, they put all their effort go into cloud, and they get there, and it's an exhausting process, and it takes months, and they ring the bell and they say, yay, we're done, we're in the cloud. But then they never get the actual value out of why they went to cloud, because the organizational effort has been spent. So it's important as you're going to cloud that you're not thinking of just getting there, but the next step. How are you actually going to use all of the technology and sophisticated features that are available in your cloud environment? So there's a few things that we recommend that you do. One, start by identifying your North Star KPI. Now, in the olden days, I'll call it, or in the past, we've always had to use what I'll call proxy KPIs. We've had to do things like average call handle and even speed to answer and some of these things, which are important, but they were really trying to lead us to the outcome we were trying to get to. The assumption was if we answer faster, customer will be happy. Therefore, customer will buy more. Right? Simple math there. But now the cloud technologies and the integration and sophistication are such that we don't have to use the proxy KPIs. We can use a business KPI. So I encourage customers to look for that one North Star. And if you can, make it just one, because it's easy to focus around one thing and drive all effort toward it. So something like customer retention. I was working with a customer the other day, and that was their North Star, customer retention. For every 1% reduction of customer churn, the multiplier effect over a 10-year cycle was incredible to their bottom line. So that's what they chose to focus on. Or it could be revenue per customer, or wallet share per customer, or whatever it may be, but looking for that business North Star. And if you're a public company, this is usually pretty easy. Go pull out the annual report, read through it. The board and the executives will tell you exactly what that North Star is. But you really want to make sure that you are focusing on that, because it's easy to get lost in the minutia of a contact center and trying to match all of those legacy KPIs we get. So if you're trying to make it a little easier, make it easier by limiting the number of things you're trying to accomplish to one big thing and get there. Second, embrace that culture of change. Cloud technology is inherently iterative. It moves very quickly. And I've seen a lot of colleagues and customers who come from a premise world, and I came from a premise world, where it takes a while to really appreciate how fast cloud moves. The innovation cycles are rapid, which means that you're getting new features, new capabilities, and sometimes things just work a little different. But what's great about that is also true of your customers. Your customer needs and their expectations and the demands and what they want, and the business you're building to serve those customers also evolves very, very rapidly. So you have two moving targets here that are moving very quickly. One is the customer expectations, and the other is the technology that we're using to serve those customers. So you have to embrace that change. It's changing. You can't change the fact that it's changing, so change with it. And one way to do that is establish that an adoption governance framework. And that's kind of a clumsy way to say that, but all that means is you need a group of people within your company that is cross-functional. Someone from the contact center, someone from marketing, someone from operations, someone from legal, maybe, some across the business that is meeting very, very regularly to look at the business outcomes you're driving, to look at changing customer expectations, and to look at the technology evolution so that you can adopt the technology to address those first things. So you want to look at that new feature set that came out. Hey, I want to use this one. This one's important to us. This one will help drive some incremental change in our customer retention. And these 7 features that we released last week, they don't mean anything to us because we don't use them. So we're gonna disregard those. Whatever it needs to be, but it needs to be a proactive discussion that moves at the speed that the technology is. And the reason that is important is because if you don't, you end up with a backlog that becomes unmanageable. If you're meeting, for example, once a year to look at the technology and what's in the roadmap and what's come out and look at customer expectations, you end up with this tremendously long backlog of changes that is too big to consume. There's too much there, which brings us to our last suggestion, which is incremental change is always better than big bang. It's always risky when you say things in absolute ways, like always, but I'm going to say always here because it is always better. Big bang transitions are inherently risky to the organization, to the people involved, to the technology involved, and particularly when you're talking about technologies that are moving so rapidly. So if I give you an example. If I go out and I'm going to go to cloud, so I go buy my my cloud upgrade, and then I'm going to sit down and I'm going to try and transform everything at once. So I'm going to go through everything I'm doing, and I'm going to reinvent, rewrite, and it's a 12-month project, and I'm setting my goal out there to do. By the time I get 12 months in, all the underlying assumptions that built myself to that outcome have changed. So I'm inherently going to be dissatisfied. So incremental change is always better. Take the bite, as small a bite as you can that's reasonable within your business, and then continue to take those bites. And it's a little counterintuitive, but incremental change actually drives innovation faster than big bang changes. And we see that precisely in the premise versus cloud concepts, in that premise environments always had, you got your big release every year, 18 months, 2 years, that had a big release with a bunch of feature things. And that was the speed at which you could do innovation. In a cloud world, we're doing it sometimes daily, often weekly, at least monthly. You're getting innovation in these platforms that's driving incremental change. They're not often massive changes, but they're changes. So that incremental change that's driving innovation so much faster than we could in premise world is true in your organization as well. So small, bite-sized, incremental change, always better, easier to consume, less risky to the organization, and drives innovation faster for you than you ever could otherwise. So let's talk myth number 2. Myth number 2, one cloud fits all. Not true. So this has been an evolution in our industry, really driven by, frankly, some of the larger manufacturers out there who have been consuming and acquiring and building things into platforms because they want you to only buy one technology from one vendor and whatnot. So you end up with an infrastructure in which the technology is fantastic at some things and okay at the rest, and that's been okay. This is contrary to what we saw, say, 20, even 30 years ago, where you had specific manufacturers that did really specific things, and they did them really, really, really well. So whether it was a dialer or workforce management or analytics or the routing or quality management or any of those, a lot of times those were independent manufacturers that were providing that technology in an integrated infrastructure. And that's how we built infrastructures, and they were great and they worked great. They had some inherent flaws in terms of integration and whatnot, but they did what they were supposed to. So many of the manufacturers nowadays have been pushing this concept of you want one cloud, one ring to rule them all, if you will, that will drive your complete customer experience solution. And that's no longer true, frankly. And what we're seeing is a return of the best of breed. And the reason for this is because cloud is inherently better at integrating. Many of them have similar underlying technologies. They're using similar databases, sometimes the same core infrastructure. how they're built, the technology, the code that they use, the APIs that are available. Cloud technologies are inherently built to integrate better, so they do integrate better. And because of that, we as customers, as consumers of the technology, can now return to a thought of best of breed and thinking of it's not about who I'm buying. It's not if my technology is red or blue. It's about my customers. It's about my employees. It's about the goals I'm trying to drive with those constituencies. So I can stop thinking about the technology as much, if you will, and start thinking about what I'm trying to accomplish and picking the best things in the market that can do it. And I'll give you an example. The analytics technologies that are available from some independent cloud players right now are truly fantastic. And they are because the inherent technology is such that it's reaching into data pools, very, very large data pools, from your customer experience technology to your ERP to your CRM to all of the underlying your financial systems, all the things underlying, and be able to build a truly accurate picture of what's going on with your customers and do that across multiple platforms. No single one of those platforms underneath is going to be able to have that lens. So that's one example of having an analytics package that's more broad reaching, gives you really best of breed in the ability to deliver analytics at scale across a broad technology space. Let's go to our third myth. Cloud is always the answer. Well, I guess that depends on what was the question, right? So I admit I'm guilty of this as well. Been doing cloud for a while now, and it's something where it does kind of become the default, where you say cloud, cloud, cloud. You need something, cloud. You need your employees are going home because of the pandemic. Let's go to cloud. They're coming back to the office now. Well, let's just still do cloud. You know, there's this thought that cloud is always the answer, and frankly, the reason that our industry sometimes adopts that mantra is because cloud is what everybody is selling. That's what they want to sell. That's what's in the bag. But that doesn't mean it's always the answer for you. Cloud adoption is here. It's accelerating. It's not going to stop. Eventually, the vast majority of customer experience platforms are going to be in the cloud across the world. It's going to happen. It'll take some time, but it will get there. But it doesn't mean it's always the right answer. And maybe more specifically, it doesn't mean it's always the right answer right now. It might mean that it's the right answer 3 years from now, or maybe it was the right answer 3 years ago and you're late. But oftentimes we see, going back to the previous myth of taking an iterative approach to doing things, sometimes you want to use cloud in a hybrid environment. So we have a tremendous investment in, for example, our UC environment that's prem. It works great. There's nothing wrong with it. The assets are depreciated. It's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but I need to do some better analytics, or I want to do some digital transformation, or I want to use AI agent assist in my contact center. Well, there's some really great best of breed or tactical cloud approaches you can take to solve those problems without needing to replace the larger core infrastructure. You don't need to do everything at once. Do what you need to do. Do what you need to do for the reasons that will meaningfully change your business in a positive way, but don't just jump into it headlong because everybody says you got to go cloud. And if everybody told you to jump off a cliff, would you do it? The answer is no, you shouldn't. So understand why you're doing it, and if you're doing it, and if you can leverage your existing investments and existing technologies to extend them further, because there's nothing wrong with them. They're working. Continue to use them until you don't need to anymore, or there's a better solution that's going to drive that meaningful business outcome. All right, this is perhaps my favorite or least favorite myth. Myth number 4, start with like for like. If you saw me cringe a little bit there, it's because I cringe every time I hear like for like. It's, I get it. I really do. That your existing premise contact center technology is the end result of often decades of innovation. It's decades of process, and we're tweaking it, we're tuning it, we're changing it. It's a finely honed machine of customer and employee experience that you've built, you've invested in it. It's doing all the things that you've told it to do, and you just want to take that and move it to cloud because some guy over in the C-suite said I need to go to cloud, right? Going back to myth number 3, don't do that. But I get that you want to continue all of that and do it. But the other side of that coin is also true. That platform also represents decades of compromises, of budget constraints, of technological limitations, of mistakes, of flaws. How many times have I done a migration and found that there's some loop in an IVR somewhere that nobody ever even noticed? Those things happen. And so all those mistakes are there as well. So why take all of those mistakes and errors and we did it this way because that's what the technology would let us do, compromises? Why take all of those and just recreate those in the cloud? It doesn't make any sense, right? And the reality is that the organizational effort it takes you to do for a like migration, to go back and unwind all of this legacy process and technology and how we built it. And the last time we documented our call flows was in 2012, and all those things that you have to recreate, this is real life. That's what happens. The effort it takes to go do all of that and then rewrite it and build it in cloud is the same or more than it takes to just define what you're trying to accomplish and write the new platform to do it. Again, throw away the constraints you had of the past because they're no longer valid. They're not relevant in this conversation anymore. Talk about your business. What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to get more customers to buy from you? Are you trying to expand geographically? Or do you have a expanding product set that you're selling that you want to offer to the market? Do you need to offer multilingual approaches so that you're able to address new customer constituencies? Are there things you're trying to do as your business that you want to do? Start from the outcome. Start at the end and say, what am I trying to do? It's just like you're running a race. You're going to start from, where I'm trying to get to, and I'm going to train to get to that point. So start from there and then work backwards and say, here's what I'm trying to accomplish. What do I have today? How is the technology going to help me bridge that gap from starting point to end point? And then this is where it's a little counterintuitive again. What is the least I can do to get onto the cloud platform as quickly as possible so that then I can start to take all of the data and information and all the outcomes that's starting to drive right away and use that to fuel my continuous innovation cycle, that adopting change, that ability to dive in and say, I'm going to keep moving incrementally, that there is no end to a cloud migration project. There's a beginning, and you've got to get to the beginning at some point, but there's no end. You're going to continue moving because everything under it is changing it. So like for like is something we do, frankly, when we're lazy. It's something we say it's easy because I don't have to do discovery. I don't have to think about my business. Hey, this thing over here is working pretty well. I just want to take it and move it to cloud and have it work equally as well, right? It's an approach that inherently drives dissatisfaction and failure at the executive level. Because at the end of the day, I've taken a platform, I've spent millions of dollars and thousands of hours, and I'm getting the exact same thing. Why? So again, myth number 4, start with like for like. I cringe a bit every time, and sometimes sometimes we end up there, but I highly encourage you, if you're going to the cloud, if you've made the decision that that's what you need to do to drive the outcomes you're trying to get to, then embrace that and go drive those outcomes. Don't try to just recreate what you did in the past, because that's the shortest path between shortest path you think you can do organizationally. All right. So get off my soapbox there a little bit, and just backing up, 4 quick myths that we wanted to highlight here today and discuss and frankly blow up a bit. One is that the cloud migrations are easy and pain-free. They're not. They can be much easier in terms of if you're aligning to the right outcomes, you're properly resourced, you're doing the things. But, this stuff is hard. It is hard. It's hard for any organization to do it because you're taking something that is highly integrated into your customer experience and your business processes, and you're pulling it out and moving it to a different technology. That's never going to be an easy process. Let's not pretend it is. Second myth is that one cloud fits all. Again, not true. Oftentimes, the best of breed or tactical cloud approach is best to drive the outcomes that you want to do at a meaningful scale. Third myth, cloud is always the answer. Again, not true. Often true, but not true, in that the cloud it's a technology. Cloud technologies are trying to drive a business outcome. So start by asking the right questions of what you're trying to do, what you're trying to change, and then decide if a cloud technology is the best solution to the problem you're trying to solve. And the last one, again, my favorite, start with like for like. Please, please, just don't. All right. That's all I have today. Thank you very much for your time. We're excited to be presenting here from Waterfield Tech, and thank you again for taking your time. Have a wonderful day.